Добрый день, дорогие друзья.
Good afternoon, dear friends. I think that we can kick off our session. Everybody is here, and the panelists are here, so if you don't mind, let us start. So just recently, 1 hour ago, a roundtable finished here in this room, and we discussed the different challenges that we face, and today we would like to say that under the conditions of global political challenges that are trying to replace spiritual, moral, ethical guidelines, that sport and religion must remain the fundamental unifying principles that contribute to the transmission of traditional cultural values and guidelines between generations. So family is one of the key things where character is being built, but sports and religion are equally important, especially when it comes to educating younger generation. And this is what we're going to talk to you about: how sports and religion in our multinational, multicultural world can help us with this. Because in Russia we have different confessions. We need to think how to protect traditional values, and this is the main topic of our today's session. I'd like to remind to our speakers that you have up to 10 minutes for your presentations and reports, and let's start right away. Today we are joined online by Svetlana Zhurova. So, Svetlana, can you hear us? Okay, Svetlana, if you can hear us, I would like to say good afternoon, but we cannot hear you, unfortunately. No sound, so please wait a moment, we need to fix the sound problem. So, can you hear me? So yes, Svetlana, we can finally hear you. Good afternoon. Svetlana, can you hear us? So just give me a sign that I can start. So, that's great. I'm very happy to see all of you. Thank you very much for your invitation. Although I'm joining you online, anyway, I would like to raise that topic. So it's an economic forum and Islamic forum, but some people are Orthodox, some people are athletes, and some athletes will be speaking at today's session. And you know that for athletes, it is a very critical period because when the entire world is getting cracked, the sports world is getting broken, and people confront each other, it's absolutely not acceptable. That's why we need to think about global values that hopefully we possess in our country. We keep them and they will stay forever, and maybe we can take a look at them from a different perspective, through the paradigm of sports. And with sports we can transmit our values, our traditional values, namely interethnic, interreligious, international relations that have always been at a different level here in Russia. So somebody left them, but we are not going to leave them because we are a multinational country. And our Patriarchal Commission on Physical Culture and Sports appeared because the Patriarch Kirill said that sports is quite important. So not a lot of people were blessed to do sports, to play sports, that it's like not a correct thing to do, but from a certain period it was obvious that sports is absolutely okay for Orthodox people. It comes from heart, from your soul. It is important not just to be healthy, but to be spiritually healthy. Talking about Russia, in some sporting disciplines, and I see my beloved colleague Mikhail Mamiashvili, so in wrestling, this interconfessional aspect is so big that you can't even imagine, you can't see it like this in other disciplines. Everyone can respect each other, can make friends, can support each other. These are true values of sport. And this is what you are going to talk about today, and it is critically important. And it is critically important to educate our young people. And I'm happy that probably as we are getting away from this international strike, as we are looking at them from a side and we don't get involved into some unnecessary struggle, we are right. We are right in everything we do and in everything we have. In terms of our values, we have normal values, because when it comes to transgenders competing in female competitions and other things that we see, this is not good. Another example is Eurovision. It's a musical competition, musical contest that is taking place in Europe, but most of performances is just like a ball of the devil, and we don't want to have such things in sports. So that's why we are trying to protect our values, and some people step by step are trying to integrate incorrect values into sports, and we don't agree with that. That's why we are observing what they do. And we see that IOC is steadily converting into something like Eurovision that we had this year. And for Islamic world, they are very strong believers, and they need to know that they have a reliable partner, which is Russia. And through sports, we can translate these ideas, because athletes have these values, and they can speak to the entire world. So I wish you good luck. I'm hoping there will be very interesting presentation, bright presentations. And you know, I am also working in the International Affairs Committee, and a lot of people speak about different things offline. They are waiting for Russia to return to global sport, because we have real values, true values. I mentioned values several times, and we have the right understanding of the life. So that's why I welcome everyone, and I wish you all the best. Svetlana, if you can hear us, thank you very much. Svetlana is the Olympic champion, and now she works in the State Duma, and she works brilliantly. And also, she is a part of a patriarchal commission on physical culture and sports, and this is just another example how athletes can help us protecting interreligious, interethnic dialogue. So now, since we touched upon the Russian Orthodox Church, I would like to give the floor to Mitrofan, Metropolitan Mitrofan. Can you tell us how Russian Orthodox Church sees its mission in sports and in educating younger generation? So in September, in Kemerovo, a tournament took place, also during the Olympic Games, when athletes leave the country. Orthodox people come with them to Olympic Games. So what is the mission of you? Thank you very much. Brothers and sisters, we welcome you, and on behalf of Metropolitan Kirill, we welcome you to this forum, to this unique land, the Republic of Tatarstan. So we are guests that are very much welcome here in Tatarstan, and we bless you, we bless everyone. And we need to fight against the dark forces. Unfortunately, the united Western world started to pray to the Satan. And it's very obvious today. And we realize how our today's discussion is relevant. A few years ago, when we put together our commission, and when I headed this commission, it wasn't that obvious and clear, but today we understand the wisdom that was displayed and manifested, and we stepped into this fight. Because sports community that represents, I believe, the best people of any country across any aspects, cannot live without spiritual food. We cannot leave them navigate freely, and sport helps us to have courageous men, beautiful women, and no transgenders whatsoever. And sport should be like this, where we can form the examples, the role model for the younger generation. In this regard, and you mentioned the Alexander Nevsky Sports Games. It's one of our achievements that we have made as part of our commission activities in Cameroon. These competitions were held at a very high level. And I guess that we can watch a video about these games. So finally, yes, the video is here. But there is no sound. Something wrong with the sound. Please wait a moment. I'm sure that the games will be successful and will contribute to the development of grassroots sports in Russia. I wish you all the best and good luck, President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin. It is very good that we have such initiatives, as they were promoted by the Saint Alexander Nevsky, and it's very good that they are being interpreted into these sports games and that they are relevant to young generation and they get local and national support. So our people is the fighting people, and we always stood for our country. And we always fight against everyone who wants to enslave our country. So faith is the power that helps you to unleash your potential, to overcome any challenges and barriers, to contribute to our beloved country. So now we are at the new stage of our historical development, and we need to find new centers for the Olympic movement. Young people need to find the connection between themselves and the historical people of the past. Special thanks to the organizers of this event, and it was a great joy for us to come here at this significant event. So I wish all the participants of the forum great success, happy life, and to our athletes, I wish great spiritual achievements and victories. So this physical world that encounters need to be respected by us. In the name of the God, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. With God to the best achievements. So it's like this. This is how the Camera Games looked like, and we hope that in September 2024 we'll have another showcase now in Nizhny Novgorod, and we invite everyone, our friends, to take part in these games. It was quite uneasy because we do it for the first time. It was very difficult for the Ministry of Sports to get this idea because teams, these young teams, youth teams, are being supported not only by coaches but also by churchmen, depending on the religion they have. So we discussed it. Who from Tatarstan will guide our guys to the next games, and I'm hoping that you will have a spiritual support as well. And we are open for cooperation with everyone, because these games showed how young guys react to spiritual supporters. It wasn't very easy to understand for the first time, because basically they have a coach, they listen to them, but now they got another teammate who is not very usual, but sometime later they realized how big support they get from this person who asks everyone to pray, to call for the God, to embrace yourself, and with that, they can achieve better results, and young guys can feel that support. They return to their homes absolutely different people. And when they were leaving the games, they said to the churchmen, like, we understand what we need, we understand how to motivate ourselves. They got this spiritual support, and this is why we do this. And of course, everything that is written in the regulations for the first time in the Soviet sport and Russian sport, that penalties will be awarded for cursing. So we were afraid that coaches will just keep silent. They will not say anything, but still they could find other words and expressions more acceptable, and they wanted to protect ears of our children, and it was successful. When I reported about this to the Patriarch, how games took place and what happened with these penalties, and he said, Mitrofan, you would like to get away our national identity from the sport. Of course, he was just kidding. But still, we need to overcome this legacy. We can't use these dirty words. We can't insult anyone. We can't pray and curse at the same time. It's not compatible. There is no compatibility whatsoever between holy words and dirty words. And in line with that, I would like to pay your attention to the final words of the president as he was inaugurating. I think it is very important to remember his final words in his speech. And he said that we are able to do everything that we planned if we stay united. And his last words were, together we can win, we will win. And this is why we need to arrange these forums, discussions, and meetings. We will win if we stay united, because our country can only be beaten from within by disintegrating. You cannot fight it from outside. There are no such forces or powers in the world that can cope with our people and stay alive. We passed it. We saw it 1,000 years ago. Only from within Russia can be destroyed. So that's why when we organized Alexander Nevsky Games, first we wanted to call them Orthodox Games, but we were reasonable enough to give up this idea, to give up this title. They shouldn't be Orthodox Games. They should be our national rational games. And this idea was absolutely correct and fruitful. And you could see it from the video. So there were Jewish teams, Buddhist teams from Republic of Tiva. So we had such a diversity. And this is our strength. We don't want to have any confrontation in our country. We don't want to be anyone isolated. And this is not what we're pursuing. We need to be very careful with that. And that's why we have such projects.
Otherwise, actually, I remember the Games of the Future that took place quite recently here. And here, Kirill, Kamil Hazarat, and somebody from another community was here. And, well, actually, we saw the future that is ahead for our country. There were a lot of interesting aspects. There were robots, etc. But then they said, okay, let's see how this wonderful city of Kazan will look like in the future. And then we saw an overview, panoramic one, and it was incredible. There were some flying cars, some highways, roundabouts, etc., up to the skies. And we just looked at each other with Kamil Hazarat, and I asked him, Kamil, and where is your mosque? And he said, yeah, and where is your cathedral, Kazan Cathedral? We didn't see anything like this. And this is the future if we don't protect it. Our future should be spiritual. It should be based on our traditional values. Otherwise, the city of the future will look like this without mosques and cathedrals, just like in the West, something very abstract. No connection to the history, to the past, nothing. It's a multicultural thing. Unfortunately, there is such a threat. So I do hope that what Svetlana just has mentioned and what was mentioned before, the previous section, I wanted to talk about the concern about the dirt that is coming from the West. I do hope that our united front will oppose it, especially with the help of our friends from Islamic countries. And we see that now they are defending their values very strictly, and that's probably the way it should be, either to defend it or not. We can't just bow to the West. This will signify the end of the history, and this country will not exist anymore either. So God bless you, and I wish that we all would be united in this unified fight for our future. Thank you. Amen. Mitrofan, thank you very much. So indeed, we should remember our past. The nation that doesn't remember its past doesn't have any future. And so you were also talking about the individual religious support person, like a coach. You mentioned this. It's very important indeed, and your competition is the fundamental unification of sports and religion. At the last session that we had, we also discussed Islam and sports, and distinguished Munir. Islam is universally accepted confession and religious, and you pay a lot of attention to raising the youth. And how do you see the role of the sports in this respect? And another question, some imposed ideas that are coming from the West. What do you think about this? This is something that we discussed at the previous session and what the president of the Russian Weightlifting Federation has mentioned. I actually have a speech prepared. Should I first answer your question, or shall I proceed with my speech? Whatever you prefer. In the name of the God, graceful and merciful, distinguished Metropolitan Mitrofan, distinguished organizers of this meeting, dear guests to this event, let me welcome all of you with our welcome words, as we do in Islam. So be the mercy, grace, and peace be with you. So I'd like to welcome you all on behalf of the chairman of our organization, and also I would like to welcome you on behalf of all the Muslims of Russia. So first and foremost, I'd like to answer your question. In fact, today, the Muslims, and not only Muslims, all ethnicities in Russia are facing some serious challenges. Today we've already heard some speakers, and while I was listening to their presentations, I've got a thought. I've got a degree in history, and the Olympics that took place in Germany, if I'm not mistaken, back in 1930s, at that time, maybe you remember that the Nazis didn't allow black people to participate in those Olympics. There were a lot of scandals and degradation based on race. And today I remembered a Russian athlete, Kamila Valieva, if I'm not mistaken. She suffered a lot. There were a lot of allegations against her to prevent her from participating in the competitions. And so here comes the fair question. What is the difference between the modern, the European referees and the German Nazis that enabled that degradation to happen? So these challenges are serious, and let me read my presentation, because there you'll find the answer to your question. So, dear participants of the forum, dear brothers and sisters, on behalf of the spiritual administration of the Russian Federation and personally, I'd like to welcome you all. First, I'd like to thank the organizers of the forum for this opportunity to speak at this high forum. In my speech, I'll talk about Islam and its connection to a healthy lifestyle in sports. And I will also talk about some sports and educational events that are held by Muslim communities of the spiritual administration of Muslims in different regions of Russia. Considering Islam as a lifestyle of Muslims, we can say that this is the system of a healthy lifestyle. In Quran and in Sunni, there are commandments and rules that promote good physical, mental, and spiritual well-being of an individual, since or their physical health is interconnected with all other aspects of our lives. Healthy lifestyle in Islam is closely connected to some specific attention in this religion to the value of life, as well as the body of a human being. And any actions, any poisonous agents are completely prohibited in Islam. We pay some special attention to the question of diet. We are basing on some rules and bans when it comes to our food, and there we proceed from the benefit and risk for a person. That's why we prohibit alcohol, cigarettes, any toxic agents that can harm and damage our health. The Prophet said that alcohol-based drinks cannot be taken even as a medicine. Muhammad said that the God didn't give you relief in what's prohibited. And also we have the food ethics in Islam. We need to go away from some excessive consumption because we need to keep a good physical shape. Islam prescribes during the Ramadan the education not only of our soul but also of our body, because the fasting is the procedure to purify our body and ourselves. And in Quran it said that those who are facing the Ramadan should be fasting. And so the health of Muslims is also very well benefited from the 5-time praying per day. Praying is a movement or movements that also prevent some diseases of our gastrointestinal tract, of our backbone, etc. And praying helps us to go away from some sad emotions. It contributes to the well-being of our nervous system. And when people pray during their whole life with some breaks lasting for a couple of hours, this makes people disciplined, robust, and people get both physical and mental benefit from that. The Prophet Muhammad paid some special attention to the physical education of the youth. It was said that we need to train our children how to swim, as well as how to ride camel, etc. Also, he said that those who believe and those who are strong are more loved by the God than those who believe but are less strong. So following those commandments in Islam, today the Muslim communities in Russia also try to develop this lifestyle promotion, healthy lifestyle promotion, as well as we try to promote physical culture and sports education in our country. The future of Russia and resurrection of our traditional spirituality should be based on us meeting halfway. We should organize conferences, meetings, sessions, as well as different seminars, some joint charity projects to jointly fight for enlightenment and morality. And in this respect, I can refer to the spiritual administration of the Moscow region. They've been organizing different sports and educational events for about 10 years. That's how they popularize healthy lifestyle among Muslims as well as people living in the region as a whole. And so within the sport events that are taking place at the municipal level, the spiritual administration of Muslims organizes some large region-level events, such as the mini football tournament among Muslims and Muslim communities in the Moscow region. And the Muslim organizations of other regions also play a very important role in this respect. For example, the mini football competitions are held in Saratovsk, Lipetsk, Nizhny Novgorod Oblast or regions, and in Mordovia Republic and in Zabaikalsk Krai. And in Ryazan, spiritual administration traditionally takes place in the competitions of the competition that is called We Make Friends with our compatriots. And also in Dagestan, we organize horse riding competitions. And so the main goal here is to preserve the spiritual values for those ethnicities that have been traditionally working a lot with horses. And the spiritual administration of Mordovia, starting from 2000s, it has organized the summer youth camp for Al-Ansar Muslim children. And in this camp, children can learn about the history of Islam, they can study Quran, they can do sports very actively, and they can enforce their spiritual and moral values. As to the infrastructure to support all this, today, almost every Islam university or Islamic university has its own sports playgrounds. The Moscow Islamic Institution is a very telling example of an efficient cooperation involving all the aspects of the contemporary innovative development. And under the auspices of the Moscow Islamic Institute, within the interconfessional and interethnic cooperation, there are regular football matches between the students of the Islamic University as well as students of other Moscow universities. So, dear colleagues, it's become a good tradition for the athletes to visit the Moscow Mosque, Cathedral Mosque, before they're going to the Olympics and to Paralympic Games. There they hear some good and kind words from our priests. And Mufti Ramil Hazrat Gamudin also blesses our teams and wishes success to the whole Russian national team that is going to any country to compete on the sports field. And I do hope that in the future the Muslims in Russia can move along the way of the moral resurrection to educate our youth when it comes to our religion and our upbringing. I hope that we can raise our children, the healthy participants to the community. I wish all the participants of this forum a fruitful exchange of opinions, interesting discussions, some new scientific developments and breakthroughs, as well as good health. These events can help us to show the multi-year Russian experience when it comes to coexistence of the representatives of different confessions. So let the peace and the God's love be with you. Distinguished Munir Hazrat, thank you very much for your work when it comes to the youth education. As you said, sport plays a very significant role in this work. And here we also have mosques, such as Urde Mosque. There people with and children with disabilities can also do sports. Thank you very much for your work. And we had a question at the last session. It was asked by Marat Bereev. He asked about the youth games, Islamic games that might take place in Russia. Thank you for this. And I guess that without the Ministry of Sports, one cannot do anything. So I would like to invite Evgenia Pavlova, the representative of the Department of International Affairs at the Ministry of Sport of Russia. Evgenia, the floor is yours. Distinguished Iraq, distinguished colleagues, we've just listened to the presentations of our religious leaders, and they spoke about development of sports and moral and spiritual education. This is also enshrined in the documents by the Ministry of Sports, as well as in the strategy for the sports development up to 2030. And one of the goals is to develop the cooperation with regional confessions in Russia to build the spiritual and moral character of a Russian citizen. Today, in accordance with the calendar of the Ministry of Sports, we have about 300 events to organize. Those events are to preserve the cultural heritage of Russia, and guided by the order of the President of Russia, we also organize the festival of the Olympics, and its goal is to preserve, develop traditional cultures and sport disciplines. This festival welcomes 1,000 athletes from different regions of Russia. And last year in Ufa, for the first time, we had the international sports games of national and non-Olympic disciplines. So those games gathered more than 300 athletes from more than 20 countries around the world. So we are aimed at expanding the scope of these events, and we'd like to introduce the Russian traditions to the international audience. And one of such events is the Children of Asia competition. Today, another speaker will talk about this. In Primorsk Krai, there is a similar project which is called the Children of Primoria. This is to unite children and youth in sports. And within the context of international development, one cannot help but mentioning the initiative to launch the CIS Games. For the first time, they were held here in Kazan back in 2021. Those games became a real celebration, true celebration for the participants, and this allowed the participants from CIS countries to show their talents and to build friendly connections between the participants from CIS countries. I would like to state that we also have open format competitions, and athletes from any country can take part in this without any restrictions and limitations. We've just seen the successful organization of the Games of the Future, which gathered more than people from more than 106 countries, and very soon we'll have BRICS Games. And now we've got applications from participants from more than 90 countries. On top of the sport events, we also plan to organize some cultural events, such as a Sabantui Festival, for example. I should also mention such events as the International Festival of the University Sports It took place last year, and it welcomed athletes from 36 countries around the world. It was a unique event in the university sport. This is not only to preserve the competition activities, but also to build friendly relationships between the young generations from different countries. We also have a lot of events of the patriotic format. For example, in Belarus, we also had the 20th university competitions. And youth from Russia and Belarus also commemorated the victory in Stalingrad battle during the Second World War. And the participants to the competition could also go to the historic places. They could commemorate those who participate in the Stalingrad battle. And so this year we'll also have some specific patriotic topics within these games. For example, in Gomel and Brest will be a lot of events held. I would like to separately mention such a project as the Museum of Sport that launched the project The Country of Heroes. This is to educate young people in the field of patriotism. And on the example of those who participated in the Second World War, we are telling about the values that should be adhered to. So Russia has demonstrated its experience in multiple times when it comes to preservation of our values, as well as fair competition and healthy lifestyle. We do hope that we'll be able to expand the scope of this project. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mikhail Garazevich. So you are an Olympic champion. In wrestling, we have a lot of legendary people. You are one of them. You are the Olympic champion, you're a coach, and you are the head of the Russian Wrestling Federation and a lot of international bodies. So one needs to apply for us in a good way. And the representatives of wrestling competitions weren't caught in any scandals, in any bad situations. And I guess this is also because of the coaches that are working in wrestling. How do you train true champions that are good not only in sports, but also in their moral values? Thank you very much. Thank you, dear Metropolitan Mitrofan. Thank you, distinguished Munir, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. Well, it's a big question, who trains whom, you know? Coaches, athletes, or the other way around. We try to listen to each other, and here I see some friends of mine with whom we've gone through a lot of challenges, starting from the 90s, when there was an effort to draw the line between the sport and the moral aspect of our life. And thanks God, we managed to preserve the traditions that we originally got. We got the values that were stronger than those forces that tried to delete everything from our genetic memory. Everything, I mean, everything spiritual, moral, everything that unites us. So here, Metropolitan Mitrofan mentioned about the evil forces, and I guess we can see some symptoms like this today already. Because today we have the modern Olympics, right? But what was the foundation of the Olympics is the mutual understanding, the willingness to see each other regardless of the race, religion, etc. Olympics was a platform where people were going not just to win, not to get some points, not to earn a lot of money. They wanted to see each other. But what has happened? For example, what happened in fencing in the Olympics? You remember there was a tournament where there was a Russian athlete and a Ukrainian athlete, and the Russian athlete who won wanted to shake the hand of the Ukrainian athlete. And so Ukrainian athlete refused to do this, and it was fully supported. But that's actually a total violation of the Olympic values, because the Olympics, regardless of who's participating, who's won, who's lost, presume that one needs to have the handshake to show the respect to your competitor. Well, I think we'll manage to overcome this with God's help. As to the sports, well, how can we overcome ourselves? How can we overcome our weaknesses that a young athlete can face? How shall we keep track and not fall into the trap of our pride? I guess here we need to have faith and some mentor. The mentor who will help not to just satisfy our pride, but who will help to live with understanding, who will help to overcome our weaknesses, to fight them. For example, to help your rival, your competitor, to become stronger. You know, quite often our disciplines, such as wrestling and weightlifting, those are disciplines who welcome the biggest number of children. Those children that do not always come from wealthy families, families that cannot always buy a tennis racket or buy something else, some gear for sports. Quite often, we see children from some families with difficulties, where they don't always have a father or mother, etc. And even if they have a full family, then it doesn't always mean that their parents is the role model for them. And in this case, the coach should play the key role, the coach to whom the child will come.
So as I remember my boyhood, how I went to wrestling. So I went to the academy, and in just 1 or 2 weeks I was under fantastic guide of my coach. So I have very strong family, decent family with true values. But when I met my coach, I saw a real leader. And for such kids, for such children, so they need not just a tutor or a coach, but a leader who will teach them how to be a real man, how to be worthy, and how to protect the real values. So I remember that in 1950s, Stalin wanted to integrate the Soviet people into all international organizations and also into the International Olympic Committee, and we started to compete at the Olympic Games, and the results were quite good. And we can remember Hazrat Safin, who went to his Olympic Games when he was just 19 years old, and he was a candidate for Master of Sports, and he was quite successful. And we can remember the names of different people of different confessions who made it possible to get medals at the Olympic Games. And these are the representatives of our great Russian people. And these are things that help us to stay united. And that's our heritage, because it's all about responsibility. of our people. It's all about being a hero. Of course, we need to make our athletes strong, agile. They need to know how to win, how to achieve better results, but still they need some spiritual support. And this is a very good example how we can achieve that. And that case with the Ukrainian saber fencer who denied a handshake, I think is just unbelievable. It's not correct, and our state, the Ministry of Sports and other organizations are completely responsible and accountable for this, because they are responsible for their areas, for their directions, and children's coaches are very important, and we need to make their work a prestigious one. I remember my boyhood, and I could talk to a very powerful man, and I can tell you that every time I'm being told something serious, I get back to that topic of kids coaches, because that's the foundation. This is someone who gives you fundamental characters and traits, and who helps you to make them even stronger. And this should be a prestigious work, just like in the Soviet era. And the wages should be decent as well. And it's all about being a prestigious work, social responsibility, trustworthiness. So there are three very simple positions that can destroy the entire community or society. So first is to make a mother be ashamed of their status, to make community despise their coaches, their teachers. And the last one is to make the people forget their history. And this is what they do. So mothers are the second people after the God, and God gives them everything. And it's our duty as fathers and brothers to love them and to protect them. And of course, we cannot cope with it. We cannot stand it here in our country, in our land, and this is not going to happen here in Tatarstan. And at the very end of my talk, I would like to remember when President Putin, at one of his meetings, he said that I put everything into it. The understanding of Russia, how he understands Russia, how he is speaking about Russia. And he once said, if there is no room for Russia in this world, why do we need such a world? Why do we need a world without history, or history that they're trying to give us instead? So, and when Mitrofan mentioned his experience, he said that we all need to repent, and at the very end I would like to say that as we stay united, nobody will win us. Thank you very much, Mr. Mamiashvili. Well, raising champions is quite important, and the role of the coach is, of course, quite relevant. Obviously, most of their time children spend with their coaches, and coaches can also be teachers. And it's a very important work. And now I would like to introduce to you our three-time Olympic champion who knows what coaching is, because she is a coach. She is the president of the Russian Synchronized Swimming Federation. So they collect Olympic medals, as many as possible. So now they cannot do it, unfortunately, but still I can remember my own example when I was getting ready for the Olympic Games. We went to the training session, and synchronized swimmers were already in the pool. So we went back home. They were still training. So I was passing through the gym, and they were still in the gym. And so Olga Brusnikina, she's joining us online. If you can hear us, we welcome you. Hello, everyone. Please confirm that you can hear us. So yes, we can hear you. So that's great. And I'm very happy to welcome you to this forum. Thank you very much for inviting me to this session and for giving me a chance to speak in front of you. Unfortunately, I couldn't hear the previous reports, but the latest report I could hear, and I absolutely agree that the role of a coach, of a teacher, of a tutor is very important, especially when our country is under such a heavy pressure. We need to think about our future generations. We need to find true values, and this is why it is so relevant today. So for us, the role of a coach or a teacher was very important and is still very important. So I can't remember a single day when I wasn't involved into sport. So all my professional life was according to the schedule. So that's why today I'm absolutely convinced that sport is a great tool, great platform to build the right values. Just would like to give you a few facts of those things that can be found in the life of an athlete or a children, and which can help us to raise decent people, the true patriots of our country. So sport is all about teaching children how to work. So all my entire life is connected to sport, and I still don't remember a single second, a single moment of time that I could just waste my time, some things that were not related to achieving my goals. Sport teaches you that every action should be aimed at something, and you cannot waste your time, your life, your precious time. You cannot waste your time without any goal, and that's the main thing that I learned when I was an athlete, as I realized how important it is to use my time with a great benefit. And we need to teach it from early ages to our children, to our young athletes, because they will grow and they will have higher goals. And of course, this skill will help them not to waste their time and efforts, not to waste their life on some entertainments or some bad things that will be harmful to them and to their future. So of course, sport builds the teamwork spirit and the responsibility before your teammates. You cannot let them down. You cannot betray them, because this may lead to a defeat of the entire team. And of course, these are very important skills of a person, of a citizen. And we build these skills so they can work and live in our multinational state. We all live to teach our children how to help others, how to support others. And they need to know how to work in a team. Because as we say, one person cannot do something alone. It's all about a very big amount of people who work for the common cause as a team. Sport builds the feeling of patriotism, and I'm very much convinced about it, because the main attributes of an athlete are flag and anthem. So when you just start playing sports, when you just start your sporting career, you are defending your city or then your region, and then you defend the flag and the anthem of your country. And you understand that your life is closely connected and tied with your nation, and they need to understand that their results will be appreciated, and this is what we need to teach our children, our younger generation. So they need to understand that they do it not just for some achievements or awards. This must be praised by the people of your country, by your teammates, by your colleagues, and that's the main goal. Of course, sport builds respect to elder people, to coaches and teachers. As Mr. Mamiashvili said, it's such a difficult and hard work to coach, and children coaching is absolutely unique, because a coach, unlike teachers, school teachers, or tutors, coaches stay with athletes in the most difficult situations, when you need to overcome your fear, your pain, your anxiety, your concerns and other feelings that sometimes we need to overcome. And here, coaches truly need to be not as tutors, but they need to be leaders, they need to be role models. And only in that case there will be a real and strong and powerful effect, and I can tell you from my coaching experience. So I don't believe that I'm a very experienced coach, but still I can tell you that sometimes parents come to us and ask for help, because they can't cope with some difficult situations, they can't explain something to their children, and they say, you are the only person who can do it, you are the only person who can guide our children. And of course, coaches will definitely find the right words to guide and to help, because we are responsible for our children and for what we are trying to give them. Well, of course, it helps to build respect to history, to the legacy of our predecessors. And by your example, you can share your experience that you had previously, maybe in a very similar situation or a very similar case. And it actually helps to give the skills to our younger generation, how to respect our ancestors, our forefathers. And Mikhail already mentioned that at some moment of time we lost that connection, and we didn't put these goals in front of coaches. But today I'm absolutely persuaded that we need to set such goals to our coaches to deal with the educational work, to deal with the spiritual education, and I'm happy that now we see that approaches are changing, and it is quite important because sports is so diverse. We have so many athletes, so many organizations, and sometimes even government or regulators can check how the spiritual education and how the rest of education are being carried out. That's why I think that we need to pay special attention to that in sports. So take a look at classes that appear very spontaneously, and sometimes sporting federations are not aware of coaches and their skills who work in these federations, so they open some companies for that. And we sometimes even don't know who invests in such organizations, and I see that this is a very big problem, and I'm hoping that in the nearest future, Minister of Sports and our government will take on that problem, because we need to be aware of who, where, and how coaches our children, in what conditions, in what organizations. It's very good that we have different forms of grassroots sports, of sports, of physical culture and education. But anyway, we need to be sure that if our children start to play some sport, they should not only get a decent service, but also they need to get decent spiritual support. And of course, sports builds respect to the rights. Unfortunately, you have run out of time, Ms. Brusnikina, and I'm just about to finish just a few words to sum up. And of course, sport helps to respect rules and rights. It also helps to teach our children what the fair play is, because they need to conform to the regulations, to laws and rules, and which is very important in their day-to-day life. So maybe I forgot something, but anyway, all these skills that I mentioned are quite relevant and important, and they are absolutely needed. This is an absolute must if we're talking about spiritual education, and I think that sport can help us with that. It is a great tool to educate and to raise, upbring very well developed citizens, and of course a very special role, a social role, should be taken by those athletes who have achieved some results, and they should serve a role model for younger generations, not in terms of how to achieve sporting results, how to get medals in sports, but how to be a good person. And they need to be a role model, how to act fairly, and they need to show with their own example that sport is making real good people, patriotic people of our society. Thank you very much. Thank you, Olga. So you're absolutely right. You can't be just a hero of sport. You also need to be a good person. And this is how we can achieve that with religion. And it's not a coincidence that you have become an Olympic champion. And we know that you work hard. But I would like, thank you very much, Ms. Brusnikina, and I'm hoping that you will stay with us until the end of the session. Now I would like to give the floor to Ildar Gilmudinov, First Deputy Chairman of the State Duma Committee on Nationalities Affairs. So Russia is not just a big country, it's a multinational country. And even small nationalities, ethnic groups have their own culture, their own identity, their traditions. So what do you think about this? How we can use it for spiritual education of our children?
Good afternoon. Well, I guess everybody is quite tired, so I won't call upon you to be patriotic. It's actually in our blood. So I guess we need to work with our children more, because sports and physical activity and education, it's more about children. This whole story will not end in a year. As our enemies and friends have said, they will be spoiling our life more and more. Also, they'll use some informational resources. We also have some friends who left us, and they try to make the country where they grew up look very bad. And so the efforts of all these people are now aimed at our children. They do understand that they can't take us, and that's why they are aiming and going after our children. That's why the role of sport is hard to underestimate. We just discussed it on the sidelines that I'm, as the head of the working group that is working on the draft law on physical activities. It was adopted back in 2007, and well, it was made of a compromise about the role of the state and some other organizations. So I guess that social organization and public organizations should be responsible for the development of sport. The government should also do their work. Actually, mostly of our sports are financed by the government. And we shouldn't really be only talking about who's responsible for what. We also have the Olympic Committee in Russia, for example, and it should also have some functions and tasks to complete. So I've already mentioned multiple times that we need a new law on physical education in Russia to develop national sports and mass sports. We also need to highlight the role of a coach in this process. We need to increase the salaries of the coaches. We need to think about the approaches, how to make this all happen. We can't organize it in such a way that when a person performs or people perform the same amount of work, but they get paid differently in Moscow and in the regions, because the work that they do is the same, and the amount of work is the same, and maybe the quality in the regions is even higher. So I would also like to mention that under our committee there is a working group on sports. Now we have scientists and theoreticians in there, but we'd also like to add some practice. And we'd like to enforce our working group with the help of our religious leaders. I guess that such a cooperation would be very suitable. It would also be very nice to work with the regions. We have some interesting work to do ahead of us. And just a couple of words about different ethnicities that live in Russia: Samba, Lapki, Trada, and many, many others. Those are big movements actually now. I mean, those are the sport disciplines that were born in this country. Sometimes they're not even connected to any specific ethnicity, but those are the disciplines that we should continue developing. And when we were drafting the law that I've already mentioned, we also wanted to have this norm. The norm should say to create a federation of national disciplines in sports. It's enough to have this discipline developing in at least 3 regions. And then they can create all-Russia federation. For example, when it comes to such games as Gorodki or Skittles. And so a lot of national sport disciplines are not recognized as disciplines even in Russia. We need to recognize it, especially when it comes to the small indigenous people. They're also competing in sledges, for example, and we need to recognize that. We need to support it from the governmental point of view. So we would like to promote this cooperation. And in the nearest future, we'd like to organize a roundtable in the State Duma. We'd like to invite the representatives of the Ministry of Sports, the Olympic Committee of Russia. The Olympic Committee of Russia also has a special committee or subcommittee on national disciplines in sports. It doesn't have a lot of work to do now, and we need to find this work for them. I'm sure there is plenty. So we would like to invite all them and discuss how we can move forward and promote it. We need to be proud of our sport disciplines. A lot of them are actually quite accessible and available. For example, Gorodki. Well, I guess when you're 50 years old, it's already not very good to wrestle. But if it comes to Gorodki game, a local game in Russia, it's a very available discipline in sports. Well, those who grew up in villages definitely know this game. For us, it's important. And there is an order by the president of Russia, in accordance with which we should organize the annual festival of national sport disciplines. We started at some point of time, but then the Ministry of Sports abandoned it. So we need to bring it back. It's not only about sports, it's also about morals and about values and traditions. And quite soon there'll be the session of the Presidential Council, and I will mention this. I will say, Vladimir Vladimirovich, your order hasn't been yet implemented fully by the Minister of Sport. I guess he will have something to respond to this, the President. Well, we also have a big tournament of nomads. We need to organize it all properly. There is no restriction on this. And the last thing that I'd like to mention, I would like to wish everybody to stay healthy, happy, and thank you for coming to Kazan. And thank you to the Minister of Sports, but I would also like to wish them to invite more people, more professionals to come here to such events, because we need to unite those people who are interested in developing all this. And the very last comment of mine. At the previous roundtable, there was a topic, I've just heard it, so it would be nice to have infrastructure for the believers when they come to such events, such as praying rooms, etc. And I can state that me and your new Minister of Sports have suggested a draft law. And so the organizers of sport competitions and events should have the right, if it's needed, to create those praying rooms. There is such a draft law, and let it be passed together with you. Thank you. Thank you. So it's actually our minister, not only your minister, the new Minister of Sports. I would like to give one comment. You touched upon a very important topic, which is the national sport disciplines for different ethnicities. So we have the deputy head of the Federation of Wrestling of Tatarstan. And we actually sat together with him many years ago, and we discussed the school curriculum. And at that time, we got full support. But there was a question about the traditional or national sport disciplines. Remember Sabantuy, there were about 200,000 people. And at that time, honestly, I thought, I was just an idiot. That's what we should have started with. Any territory should promote their traditional sport disciplines, just as they're promoting language, national traditions, national clothing. This is the cultural identity that we mentioned today multiple times already. And of course, when we try to eliminate all this, we try to go away from our identity. The Russian Wrestling Federation can not only develop the Olympic disciplines, with the understanding that there are a lot of disciplines that involve many, many other people and ethnicities, and those games actually have a history of thousands of years. Thank you. Yes, actually, that's why I came today wearing the national clothing. It's all about our traditions. Right, okay, thank you. So we can expect some legal initiatives from you, right, that will protect the national traditions? Well, now I'm the head of an office of Россотрудничество, and some federations of the national sport disciplines, different ones, they organized World Championships and European Championships last year and this year. So thank you very much also to the representatives from Azerbaijan. And well, if we started to talk about big events, including the national level ones, we have a multi-sport event that is taking place on a regular basis, the Children of Asia. So, Vladimir, maybe you could talk about this, and maybe you could elaborate on the goals that your project is aimed at. Good afternoon, dear friends, dear colleagues. I'm very happy to welcome you. I would like to thank the organizers of this event. I will try not to take too much of your time. Of course, I would like to tell you a lot because, well, I've also listened to the presentations. And, well, I agree with almost all of it. The topic of today's discussion, which is the spiritual and the moral education, I guess that this is one of the most important topics that we should discuss everywhere. We need to come to some solutions that will promote not only the development of sport and athletes, but also of the whole humanity. Because today, unfortunately, the world and the sport world has turned into one big political game. And there was a very good comparison, actually, with the Olympics that took place in Berlin back in 1936. At that time, the position of the state that was hosting the Olympics was quite clear, but actually, at that time, there was a difference because the International Olympic Committee was defending its rules and principles, and that's why today J.C. Olsen, the athlete, was actually granted the access to the games, and he could participate in that games at that time. But today, unfortunately, the organization that should be supervising the adherence to the rules of the Olympic Charter, unfortunately, it undermines those rules. But let's not only talk about sad things. Actually, handshake was enshrined in the rules of the fencing competition about 100 years ago. I guess it's also connected to the moral and spiritual character of athletes, because today all the sport organizations support the change or sometimes undermining of rules of the sport disciplines. And I guess that this is the beginning of the end for everything. As to the Children of Asia Games, it's very nice to state that today those games were already mentioned a couple of times. They were founded in Yakutia in the Republic of Sakha back in 1996. So the games were created on the one hand to show Yakutia region and on the other hand to involve athletes and enable them to compete with their peers. And I guess that that was a very long-sighted solution. And as well as the name, the Children of Asia, this is to unite children from the Asian continent. So we organized those games once in 4 years. And over the history of 28 years, the games have gone through the way from the regional level games to one of the largest multi-sport event in Asia. And this is for children and young athletes. More than 15,000 athletes from more than 40 countries of Asia have participated in these games. There are a lot of names of athletes that later made some achievements in sports. One of the main ideas that is encapsulated in the games is the spiritual education, moral education of the youth. Because when we talk about morals, it should all be started from the childhood. The children should get it from their family, how to behave properly. And it's also about intercultural and interconfessional interaction, about friendship between children. Children should be shown that today, especially in the era of media and the internet, well, actually now I'm traveling quite a lot, but regardless of the country or the TV channel that I switch on, the same story is told. So a lot of countries in Asia, when they came to Russia, they fell in love with Russia. They start to learn that Russia is the multinational country with equal rights for everybody. And they see their peers that also do sports. And this friendship starts from the moment the athletes arrive here, and then it continues throughout their whole sport career. There are a lot of meanings and rules that are added to the games. The services should be rendered equally to everybody. Also, we organize the cultural program. We introduce the cultures of those countries that participate in the games, regardless of the religion, regardless of the political beliefs and opinions. That's how we seed into the children something that is growing up later. And out of 1,000 children that take part in the games, if at least 1% of those children will be influenced by the values and principles of our games, I guess that this is already enough to continue to do what we are doing, because we'd like the children to become the respectful citizens of their countries. Also, I would like to touch upon the point of praying rooms. Starting from 2012, the minimum requirements of our games have said that the organizer that hosts the games should definitely provide those rooms in the villages, athlete villages, as well as on the venues, to enable people to exercise their religion if needed. Depending on the territory where it's all held, and the main confessions in Asia are, of course, such as Orthodox Church and Islam. We provide all the necessary conditions for those who believe in those religions. And we pay some special attention to the education of children. Of course, it's about sports and the results, but it's even more about bringing up our youth. Because quite often, for a lot of children, this is their first visit to another country. On top of this, we are also developing some educational projects. One of them is the way to the Olympus. And we talk about the true values of the Olympic movement there. Well, I would like to refrain from saying something sad, but we also have zero tolerance to doping as our principle. We need to actually explain it to children starting from the very beginning, because they need to understand what this can lead to, I mean, the doping. We need to show some bad examples in sports to educate them properly. And the third block here is the sports psychology. Well, we talk a lot about doping, but it's not that we talk about psychology of sport quite a lot. This is one of the aspects that should not be overlooked, because that's how we can prevent athletes from falling into the doping trap. Because Pierre de Coubertin, the founder of the Olympic movement, has said that in the competition of those who are equal in their capabilities, what is the key to success is the psychology. So we presented this project last year at the second Children of Asia Games in Kuzbas, and about half of our participants also were involved in this new project. This year we are planning to organize it in Yakutsk at the 8th Games. In parallel with this, we also organize it in Thailand and in Kyrgyzstan, etc. And so that's how we'd like to prepare our children for the future. Last year, we founded the Alumni Foundation or Council. It's those alumni who reach some good results. So we also involve them in our projects, meaning that they go to different territories, they organize workshops, they share their journey in their life, they just talk about some regular topics. And in parallel with this, we also organize some physical education lessons to show to some primary school students how it's all done. Because actually, it's not that Olympic champions can come to schools in some regions very often. We just wanted to show that the Olympic champions were also just children, and we would like to allow present children to meet those Olympic champions. We think it's a very important topic, and I would like to thank you for this invitation, for this opportunity to speak. Thank you for your presentations as well. They were very meaningful. We need to move forward, we need to unite, to educate proper, good, normal next generation with a good lifestyle without falling into trap of some Western novelties, because, well, new things sometimes can be dangerous. Now we understand that that's actually true, and I would like to support the initiative of the Russian Orthodox Church when it comes to the games of Alexander Nevsky. Yes, it's a very good project, and what was said today is a very right thing, that we need to unite the representatives of different confessions. We cannot focus on just one confession, one group of people, because Russia, I guess, is one of the most vivid examples of multicultural friendship, multinational cooperation. There is no other country like this. Thank you, and I would like to use this opportunity and invite to Yakutsk from 25th of June to the 7th of July. So we are going to host the 8th Games Children of Asia. And so most of our participants have already confirmed their participation out of 25 invited countries, and it will be a festival and celebration of sports, friendship, and youth. Thank you very much, Vladimir. Actually, I've seen it all with my own eyes. Indeed, your games are multicultural, multinational. Thank you very much. Our next project that is global and that actually was implemented just recently, and we already mentioned it multiple times today. There was a video about this. Well, maybe something will change into the video after the next presentation. I'd like to now invite Igor Stolярov, the head of the project Games of the Future, that were a success in Kazan. Well, the youth, young people really liked it. For example, my son watched all the competitions. So maybe now you could elaborate on this and also respond to some critics. Right, yes. So Metropolitan Mitrofan already criticized us a little bit. Thank you very much. We already participated in some sessions on these topics, and I also would like to talk a bit on the youth, as well as about the technology. Well, honestly, I also didn't like the opening ceremony in the part that you mentioned, Mitrofan. It's not because I'm just here to speak and to start some discussion, no, but we didn't really manage to control the creative part of the opening ceremony. We focused more on the sport aspect and the moral aspect. Well, we will work on this. I hope those are not the first and last Games of the Future. Now we are going international, but now it's quite confidential. I can't tell you all the secrets. However, I'd like to build a bridge to Kazan, because Kazan is my home town. This is my motherland. Actually, I'm here for the first time after we finished on the 3rd of March. But what's most interesting is that you remember Russia is a sports country forum. And we had the first roundtable led by Mr. Chernyshenko, and he started this movement and competition. So it all started here. I don't like to say that, and I wouldn't like to say that everything is finishing here. We continue. So thank you organizing this, and thank you organizers. So I also wanted to mention the following. What is the origin and genesis of all of this, the Games of the Future? It's interesting that in this tectonic shift and this epic battle that we are going through, and it's indeed epic, to be the contemporaries and to watch all of this. I wouldn't say that we enjoy it that much, but we can see it with our own eyes. So we started the project before 2022, to be more precise, in 2020 and 2021. But there were two main reasons to start all this. First one, what is going on now? The games of Alexander Nevsky, the BRICS games, Children of Asia games, BRICS games. Those are new sport assets that Russia is creating. And as Vladimir Putin said at the opening ceremony, this is what Russia is giving to the humanity as a gift. And this is amazing. We produce not only tanks and military equipment and fossil fuels, metals, etc., but we have organized the most successful Olympics in the whole history of this movement when it comes to the organizational part. Well, I was involved quite deeply in the organizing committee work. We also conducted the most successful FIFA World Cup when it comes to the organization. We conducted also the most successful aquatics championship. And, well, of course, we refer to FIFA and UEFA and the International Olympic Committee, etc. But you can just use the phrase the best ever games, but this is not limited to this. These games are one of our most successful export products. And one of the tasks that we wanted to address is to create this sports asset. Because in this tectonic shift, when we were banned, isolated, and encapsulated, it's a new word, we said, you know, we are creating the new sport asset, the games of the future. We do know how to do this, and we love to create something new. And then we opened our doors and said welcome, and 116 countries came here. Here, Kazan, this expo was one of the main venues within Games of the Future. And this will happen with all the assets that Russia and Tatarstan, Yakutia are creating. I'm quite sure of this, because we love it and like it.
And here is the second part of it. And it is the spiritual and moral education. I got a message from you about young people. Just a few facts. 4 billion people play sports, play video games, or watch it. It's just a half of global population. There are 4 million cyber athletes, and the capital is just several billion US dollars. And in some American shooters in video games, so US soldiers are being recruited. So you just play video games and then you see a pop-up window and you can click and get into the US Army. In China, not a single video game can enter the market without special modifications. Like, if there is an M16 rifle, the video game will not make it to the Chinese market if they don't substitute it with the Chinese rifle. And that's the legislation. They're trying to limit this negative influence. And we can give you as many use cases as possible like this, especially when it comes to video games on PCs, on consoles. So there are video games and cyber athletes, but there is also Phygital, the games of the future, because Phygital is a different principle and we build it to get this young generation from video games, from mobile phones, from consoles, and to make them find the right balance between video games and physical activities. Because we brought these cyber athletes to the pitch, to the ice rink. We wanted them to show their skills. And those skills that they are very good at in video games, they also had to manifestate them at the real sports venues. And that was a very big challenge. And now I would like you to watch a video. Let's check it out, and then I will give you a few more points. And sound, please, because sound is so critical here in this video. So can we do it once again? Now with the sound. So is it possible to play the video with the sound? So just a few more points. I'm not going to tell you more about the tournament. You could see how magnificent it was, and we have met all our key performance indicators in terms of number of countries, participants, and medal events. So we were under huge pressure. So here we had a technical operating center. We were fighting with DDoS attacks, with bans and everything like that. And it was fantastic. And thanks God we made it. Just a magic case. And the most important thing is the legacy and the mission that we have. This project has a mission because we are pioneering this direction. We are looking very carefully after moral and spiritual education of our children. And we have come up with the notion Homo harmonicus. Because in our era of post-industrial revolution, Industry 4.0, and we are so deep into this digital world, and we can't even realize how harmful this can be for our young generation. Our technological partner VK, every day, VK Play is just several billions views on VK Play, these vertical videos, and so on and so forth. And also we have this mission. We are trying to substitute American, Korean, Chinese video games with our Russian video games, and that's our mission as well. If we don't do it, we will fail. China is ahead of us, and maybe we need to take the experience and have the same legislation when it comes to video games and digital space. So these are our main goals, our main mission. So there is a thesis that video games are an absolute evil, but no, it's not like that, because it helps to build cognitive skills. There is like a golden balance between video games and physical disciplines, and we are fighting for this balance. We are struggling to find this balance. So the most important thing is that we do it. And when it comes to esports or traditional sports, everything should be done very carefully. And also we have cyberathletics, we have new interesting disciplines. Secondly, we are trying to find that balance, find that optimum momentum between physical world and digital worlds. And of course, we are trying to minimize these ideology effects that are inside these video games and that are trying to penetrate Russia, our sovereign territory. And of course, as a side effect, it's direct access to the profession, because we are giving the best skills to our younger generation. Because if you know how to operate a drones or robots, you don't need to retrain, to be retrained. No, you can go directly to a factory or to an IT company. So it's a very important thing. So that's why I'm pretty sure that we will do it. We will scale up this experience, because Russia is a country of opportunities, and this is our export potential. And out of it, we can arrange big, great, large-scale sporting events, best in the world. Thank you very much, and just keep on going, and everything will be okay. Thank you very much, and thank you for working with the criticism, because we know that it's quite an important thing. So we were talking a lot about religion and spiritual and moral education, and if we stay united, we will win. And in that case, there will be no questions, there will be no threats, there will be no problems with the patriotic education. There will be no problems with the moral and ethic norms. Russia was, is, and will remain a great sports country. And at the very end, I would like to give the floor to our Olympic champion, Mr. Mamilashvili, who knows what we need to work on. So it's a very good moment to finalize this session, and we need to find the way how to continue our work. We need to carry on, and so I can tell you that we need to work on that together. And the most important thing is to make coaching position the most prestigious work. We need to provide with social conditions, with good salaries, with decent work conditions. And only in that case we will see success. Sometimes we see that people start to coach because they're desperate. They don't know what to do. They don't have anything more to do, and that's why these people are not accountable. We immediately know that if they just do it for salary, for making money, it's not correct. And we shouldn't stick to this experience. We need to rely on people who can actually carry on with eternal good things. So that's it. That's it, and that's why it's our task number one. And we need to find the right things for our children, and we need to do it together and to stay united. And we need to find the right focus. And all these things should be in accordance with the targets and goals set by our president. So that's it. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And special thanks to all our speakers and all our participants.